Every morning, before the world makes its demands, before noise, pressure, and expectation rush in, there is a moment that belongs only to you. In that moment, you are not yet defined by success or failure, by yesterday's mistakes or today's tasks. You are simply awake. And what you tell yourself in that moment matters more than you realize, because it becomes the lens through which the entire day is experienced. Most people wake up already reacting. They react to alarms, to responsibilities, to worries waiting in their mind. Without noticing, they begin the day in defense mode. Their thoughts are rushed, their body is tense, and their energy is scattered. From that state, even small problems feel heavy. But the day does not have to start that way. It can start with one powerful sentence, spoken quietly but honestly. That sentence is this: I am responsible for who I become today. These words are not meant to inspire emotion. They are meant to ground you in reality. Responsibility is not a burden. It is a position of strength. When you say this sentence, you are not promising perfection. You are claiming ownership. You are reminding yourself that no matter what happens, you choose how you stand in it. When you tell yourself this every morning, excuses lose their power. You stop waiting for motivation, for better circumstances, for the right mood. You understand that your effort does not depend on how you feel. You may feel tired, uncertain, or uncomfortable, and still act with discipline. This is where strength is built not in comfort, but in consistency. This sentence also changes how you face difficulty. When something goes wrong, the mind usually looks for someone or something to blame. Blame feels relieving, but it weakens you. Responsibility does the opposite. It keeps you engaged. It asks not who is at fault, but what is required from you now. This shift turns obstacles into training rather than threats. Saying this every morning trains your mind to focus on what you can control. You cannot control the behavior of others, the outcome of every situation, or the challenges that arise. But you can control your effort, your attitude, and your response. Responsibility brings your attention back to these fundamentals. From here, calm replaces chaos. Over time, this sentence changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who reacts to life and start seeing yourself as someone who participates in it consciously. You become more reliable, not just to others, but to yourself. Each day you follow through, even in small ways. You strengthen self-trust. That trust becomes confidence, quiet and steady. This sentence also prepares you for pain. Life will challenge you. Some days will be heavy. Responsibility does not remove pain, but it prevents suffering from turning into helplessness. You understand that even in discomfort, you have a role. You can choose patience over frustration, effort over avoidance, learning over resentment. When spoken daily, this sentence becomes more than words. It becomes posture. Your body moves differently. Your decisions become clearer. You waste less energy on complaint and more on action. You stop asking for life to be easier and start becoming stronger. This is not about being harsh with yourself. Responsibility includes self-respect. It means knowing when to rest, when to push, and when to reflect. It means being honest without being cruel. Discipline grows best in an environment of clarity, not punishment. Every morning, the world will try to shape you. It will pull your attention, demand your energy, and influence your emotions. This single sentence is how you take your position before that happens. It is how you enter the day upright rather than reactive. Say it before you check your phone. Say it before you plan your tasks. Say it before the day tests you. I am responsible for who I become today. If you say it consistently, you will not need to search for motivation or confidence. They will emerge naturally from action. Over time, you will notice that life does not necessarily become easier, but you become steadier, and steadiness is power. The morning is not just the beginning of a day, it is the foundation of the mind. The first moments after waking are when the mind is most open, most impressionable, and most honest. Before the noise of the world enters, before expectations and pressures take over, the mind is soft like wet clay. Whatever touches it in this state leaves an imprint. This is why the morning shapes the mind more than any other time of day. When you wake up, your thoughts have not yet fully formed patterns. You are not yet reacting. You are simply being. In this space, even a small thought carries great weight. A single negative idea can quietly grow into tension, distraction, or frustration that follows you for hours. In the same way, a calm and grounded thought can create clarity and steadiness that carries through the entire day. Most people underestimate this moment. They rush past it, immediately reaching for their phone, their worries, or their plans, without realizing they are handing over control of their inner state. The mind learns through repetition, and mornings are the daily training ground. What you consistently think, feel, or do in the morning becomes familiar to the nervous system. If you wake up in resistance, the body learns resistance. If you wake up anxious, the mind learns to scan for problems. If you wake up distracted, focus becomes harder to access later. The morning is not separate from the rest of the day. It is the blueprint. Once the blueprint is set, the structure follows naturally. This is why discipline in the morning is not about strict rules, but about awareness. It is about understanding that the first input you give your mind determines the quality of its output. If the first thing you consume is stress, comparison, or urgency, your mind adopts that rhythm. It begins to chase, to hurry, to tighten. On the other hand, if the first thing you offer your mind is stillness, intention, or responsibility, it learns to move with purpose rather than panic. The body and mind wake up together. Your posture, your breath, and your movement in the morning communicate messages to your inner system. Slouching, shallow breathing, and rushed movements tell the mind that something is wrong, that it must prepare for danger or pressure. Standing tall, breathing deeply, and moving with control tell the mind that you are safe, present, and capable. The mind listens to the body more than words. Even silence, when held consciously, teaches the mind how to behave. Many people believe their mindset is something abstract, something they either have or don't have. In reality, mindset is trained daily, and the morning is where that training begins. You do not suddenly become focused at noon if you woke up scattered. You do not suddenly become disciplined in the evening if you woke up indulgent. The mind follows momentum, and the first push always matters the most. The morning also reveals truth. At the start of the day, there are no results yet, no feedback, no praise, no failure. There is only you and your intention. This is where honesty lives. You can see clearly what you avoid, what you resist, and what you are willing to face. If you cannot sit with your own thoughts in the morning, It shows how dependent you are on distraction. If you cannot move your body when it is uncomfortable, it shows where discipline needs to grow. The morning does not judge, it reflects. A calm morning does not mean an easy morning. Stillness does not mean comfort. Sometimes shaping the mind means choosing discomfort deliberately. It means getting up when the body wants to stay asleep. It means breathing steadily when the mind wants to rush. It means choosing intention over impulse. Each of these choices strengthens the part of the mind that leads instead of reacts. Over time, this leadership becomes natural, not forced. The mind seeks patterns to follow. If you give it chaos early, it will create more chaos later. If you give it order early, it will look for order throughout the day. This is why even simple morning practices can have powerful effects. A few minutes of silence, a few conscious breaths, a clear thought spoken internally. These are not small actions. They are signals. They tell the mind what kind of day it is stepping into. The world will eventually test you. There will be pressure, conflict, unpredictability. But the mind that has been shaped intentionally in the morning does not collapse under pressure. It remembers its baseline. It remembers that it has already been grounded before the world tried to shake it. Strength is not built in reaction to stress. It is built before stress arrives. When mornings are unconscious, days become reactive. When mornings are intentional, days become directed. This is not about perfection. Some mornings will feel heavy, slow, or resistant. The shaping still happens through presence. Even noticing resistance trains awareness. Even choosing to stay calm for one breath changes the direction of the mind slightly. Over weeks and months, these slight changes accumulate into a different inner structure. The morning shapes the mind because it teaches you who is in control. Either the day controls you from the moment you wake up, or you meet the day from a place of steadiness. This choice is quiet, subtle, and often invisible to others, but it defines the quality of your life. The way you wake up is the way you live, because the mind does not reset halfway through the day. It continues the story that began in the first moments of consciousness, carrying forward the tone, the rhythm, the posture, and the direction that were set when the day was still untouched, when the mind was still open, when you had the chance to shape it. Before it shaped you, power is often misunderstood as control over others, dominance in situations, or the ability to bend circumstances to one's will. In reality, true power begins much closer, in a place most people avoid. It begins with responsibility. Responsibility is not about blame or pressure. It is about ownership. The moment you accept responsibility for your thoughts, actions, and reactions, you reclaim authority over your life. Without responsibility, power is always temporary, dependent on luck, timing, or other people's behavior. Many people live as if power is something given to them by external conditions. They wait for confidence to appear, for motivation to strike, for circumstances to improve. In doing so, they place responsibility outside themselves. When things go well, they feel strong. When things go wrong, they feel powerless. This cycle creates instability because their inner state is tied to factors they cannot control. Responsibility breaks this cycle by shifting the center of control inward. To take responsibility means to stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, What can I do with what is happening? This shift may seem small, but it changes everything. The first question creates helplessness. The second creates movement. Even when the situation is unfair, painful, or unexpected, responsibility keeps you active rather than passive. It does not deny difficulty, but it refuses to surrender agency. Power grows through this refusal. When you take responsibility, you stop wasting energy on complaint, comparison, or resentment. That energy becomes available for action, learning, and endurance. The mind becomes sharper because it is no longer scattered across excuses. The body becomes steadier because it is not constantly reacting to frustration. Over time, this internal order creates a quiet strength that does not depend on recognition or validation. Responsibility also requires honesty. You cannot claim responsibility while lying to yourself. It asks you to see your weaknesses clearly, without self-pity and without self-attack. This clarity is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Without it, responsibility turns into performance rather than practice. True responsibility is private. It is the decision you make when no one is watching, when no reward is guaranteed, when quitting would be easier. Many avoid responsibility because they associate it with pressure showing fear of failure. But avoiding responsibility does not remove pressure. It postpones it. What is avoided grows heavier over time. Small neglected duties turn into overwhelming problems. Unfaced emotions turn into patterns that control behavior. Responsibility, taken early, keeps weight manageable. It transforms pressure into structure and chaos into direction. Power that comes from responsibility is stable because it is earned daily. It does not collapse when circumstances change. When you are responsible for your discipline, you do not depend on motivation. When you are responsible for your mindset, you do not depend on praise. When you are responsible for your growth, you do not fear obstacles. Each challenge becomes material for strengthening rather than evidence of weakness. Responsibility also deepens self-respect. You trust yourself more when you follow through on what you commit to. Each time you choose effort over comfort, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on yourself. This trust is the foundation of confidence. Confidence is not loud or aggressive. It is calm. It comes from knowing that regardless of the situation, you will respond with integrity and effort. Taking responsibility does not mean you control outcomes. It means you control your contribution. You may do everything right and still face loss or failure. Responsibility does not guarantee success, but it guarantees growth. Without growth, even success becomes hollow. With growth, even failure becomes meaningful. This perspective protects you from both arrogance and despair. Responsibility also refines the ego. When you stop blaming others, you stop feeding resentment. When you stop taking credit for everything, you stop feeding pride. You begin to see yourself as a participant in life rather than the center of it. This balance creates humility, and humility strengthens learning. A responsible mind remains open because it understands that mastery is never complete. Many seek power through control, but control is fragile. The more you try to control external factors, the more anxious you become because the world is unpredictable. Responsibility, on the other hand, is always available. No matter the environment, you can choose your attitude, your effort, and your response. This choice becomes a source of peace because it cannot be taken away. As responsibility deepens, discipline follows naturally. You no longer need to force yourself through punishment or guilt. You act because you recognize consequences clearly. You understand that every action shapes your future state. This understanding creates alignment between short-term effort and long-term well-being. Power grows not through intensity, but through consistency rooted in responsibility. Responsibility also strengthens relationships. When you stop expecting others to fulfill your emotional needs or fix your problems, interactions become cleaner and more respectful. You communicate more honestly because you are not dependent on approval. You listen more deeply because you are not defending your ego. This inner stability allows you to lead without dominating and support without losing yourself. Power that comes from responsibility is quiet and often invisible. It does not seek attention or validation. It is felt internally as steadiness. It allows you to remain grounded in uncertainty and focused in distraction. Over time, this steadiness compounds. What once required effort becomes natural. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. The world may not change immediately, but your position within it does, and that change influences every decision, every action, every moment you are alive. A single sentence, when chosen with clarity and repeated with sincerity, can become an anchor for the mind. In moments of uncertainty, distraction, or emotional turbulence, the mind searches for something stable to hold on to. Without grounding, it jumps between thoughts, fears, and impulses, creating inner noise. One sentence, simple and honest, can interrupt this chaos and return the mind to the present. Its power does not come from complexity or inspiration, but from consistency and truth. Grounding is not about escaping reality or suppressing emotion. It is about meeting reality without being overwhelmed by it. The mind often reacts faster than awareness, producing stories, judgments, and predictions. A grounding sentence acts as a pause. It creates a small gap between stimulus and response. In that gap, choice becomes possible. Without that pause, the mind is carried away by habit, repeating the same reactions day after day. The effectiveness of one sentence lies in repetition. When spoken regularly, especially in moments of stillness, it becomes familiar to the nervous system. Familiarity creates safety. When the mind recognizes a phrase it has returned to many times before, it begins to relax. This relaxation is not weakness, it is clarity. A relaxed mind can observe, adjust, and respond. A tense mind can only defend or attack. The sentence that grounds you must be something you can stand behind even on difficult days. It cannot be dependent on mood, success, or confidence. If it only feels true when things are going well, it will disappear when you need it most. Grounding comes from something stable, something that does not change with circumstances. This stability allows the sentence to function like a compass rather than a motivational quote. When pressure arises, the mind tends to move outward, searching for solutions, distractions, or reassurance. A grounding sentence pulls attention inward, back to what is within control. It reminds you of your position rather than the problem. This shift reduces emotional intensity, not by denial, but by perspective. You stop being consumed by the situation and start relating to it from a place of awareness. Over time, this sentence becomes integrated into your inner dialogue. It no longer feels like something you are forcing yourself to say. It feels like a natural response. In stressful moments, it may arise automatically, softening your breath, slowing your thoughts, and stabilizing your posture. This is not coincidence. It is conditioning. The mind has learned a new pathway, one that leads back to center instead of spiraling outward. Grounding also affects how the body responds to stress. Thoughts and physical sensations are closely connected. When the mind repeats familiar, steady words, the body interprets them as signals of safety and control. Muscles release tension, breathing deepens, and the nervous system shifts out of fight or flight. This physical change reinforces mental clarity, creating a feedback loop of steadiness. A grounding sentence does not eliminate fear, anger, or doubt. It allows these emotions to exist without dominating behavior. It creates enough space to observe them without being controlled by them. This is essential because emotions are temporary, but actions have lasting consequences. Grounding protects you from acting in ways you may later regret, especially in moments when emotions feel overwhelming. The simplicity of one sentence is what makes it powerful. The mind cannot hold many ideas clearly at once, especially under pressure. A long explanation or complex philosophy collapses when stress increases. One sentence remains accessible. It can be remembered, repeated, and applied instantly. This immediacy is what makes it useful in real life, not just in reflection. Consistency is more important than intensity. Repeating the sentence only when you feel calm limits its effectiveness. It must be practiced in moments of discomfort, uncertainty, and resistance. This is when the grounding actually takes place. Each time you return to the sentence under pressure, you strengthen its association with stability. Over time, the mind learns that it does not need to panic to survive difficulty. The sentence also serves as a mirror. When you resist saying it, that resistance reveals something. It may show avoidance, denial, or attachment to a certain emotional state. Noticing this resistance is part of the grounding process. It brings unconscious patterns into awareness, where they can be observed rather than acted out. A grounded mind is not rigid. It is flexible because it is stable. Like a tree with deep roots, it can bend without breaking. The sentence provides those roots. It reminds you of what matters beneath the surface noise. It reconnects you to intention, responsibility, or presence, depending on the words you choose. This reconnection is subtle but powerful. Over time, the sentence shapes your identity. What you repeat internally becomes part of how you see yourself. If the sentence emphasizes awareness, responsibility, or steadiness, those qualities begin to manifest more naturally. You do not have to force change. It unfolds through alignment. The sentence does not change the world around you, but it changes how you meet it, how you stand in it, how you move through it, and how you return to yourself again and again. When the mind tries to drift away, pain is often treated as something to be eliminated, escaped, or numbed as quickly as possible. From an early age, people learn to associate pain with failure, weakness, or danger. This conditioning creates a deep instinct to avoid discomfort at all costs. Yet pain itself is not what weakens a person. What causes stagnation and suffering is avoidance. Avoidance turns temporary discomfort into long-term limitation. It trains the mind to run rather than respond. Pain is a signal. It communicates information about the body, the mind, and the situation. Physical pain signals injury, fatigue, or imbalance. Emotional pain signals loss, fear, unmet needs, or inner conflict. Mental pain signals confusion, overload, or resistance to reality. These signals are not enemies, they are messengers. Ignoring them does not make them disappear. It only delays understanding and amplifies consequences. Avoidance feels relieving in the moment. Distraction, comfort, denial, or blame provide temporary escape from discomfort. But this relief comes at a cost. Each time pain is avoided, the mind learns that discomfort is intolerable. This belief shrinks capacity. What once felt manageable begins to feel overwhelming. The threshold for discomfort lowers, and life feels harder, not easier. When pain is faced consciously, its intensity often changes. It may still be uncomfortable, but it becomes clearer. Clarity reduces fear. Fear thrives in uncertainty and imagination. Pain that is observed directly loses some of its power to intimidate. The mind stops creating exaggerated stories about it. This does not mean pain becomes pleasant, but it becomes workable. Avoidance also fragments the self. When parts of experience are rejected, energy is spent on suppression. This creates inner tension. A person may appear functional on the surface while carrying unresolved strain underneath. Over time, this strain manifests as anxiety, irritability, exhaustion, or numbness. None of these states come from pain itself. They come from the effort of avoiding it. Growth requires friction. Muscles strengthen through resistance. Skills improve through repeated failure and correction. Emotional maturity develops through processing difficult experiences rather than bypassing them. Pain is embedded in all learning processes. Removing pain entirely would also remove growth. Avoidance promises comfort but delivers stagnation. Facing pain does not mean indulging in it or identifying with it. It means allowing it to exist without immediately trying to change or escape it. This allowance creates space for understanding. Within that space, appropriate action can emerge. Without that space, actions are reactive, driven by fear rather than clarity. Many people confuse strength with numbness. They suppress emotion, ignore discomfort, and push forward without awareness. This may work temporarily, but suppressed pain does not disappear. It accumulates. Eventually, it demands attention, often through breakdown, illness, or destructive behavior. True strength involves the capacity to feel pain without being controlled by it. Avoidance also distorts perception. When the mind is focused on escaping discomfort, it exaggerates threats and underestimates capability. Challenges appear larger than they are. Effort feels heavier. This distortion reinforces avoidance, creating a self-perpetuating cycle. Pain becomes associated with danger rather than growth. When pain is approached with curiosity instead of resistance, something shifts. Curiosity replaces fear with interest. The question becomes not, how do I get rid of this? But what is this showing me? This shift transforms pain from an obstacle into a teacher. Lessons may not be immediate, but they become accessible. Discomfort often marks the edge of growth. It appears when old patterns are no longer sufficient and new ones are forming. Avoiding this discomfort keeps a person trapped in familiar limitations. Facing it allows adaptation. The process is rarely comfortable, but it is meaningful. Pain also builds resilience when it is integrated rather than avoided. Each time discomfort is faced and survived, confidence grows. the mind learns that it can endure more than it thought. This confidence is not based on optimism, but on evidence. It becomes a quiet assurance that difficulty can be met without collapse. Avoidance narrows life. Choices are made based on minimizing discomfort rather than maximizing alignment. Opportunities are rejected because they feel uncertain. Honest conversations are avoided because they may be uncomfortable. Over time, this shrinking becomes invisible but profound. Life becomes smaller, safer, and less alive. Pain, when acknowledged, expands life. It invites depth, authenticity, and strength. It clarifies values by showing what matters enough to hurt. It deepens compassion by revealing shared vulnerability. These qualities do not emerge from comfort. They emerge from contact with difficulty. Facing pain requires patience. It does not resolve on a schedule. Some forms of pain need time, reflection, and repeated processing. Rushing this process is another form of avoidance. Allowing pain to unfold at its own pace honors its complexity. The mind becomes more stable when it no longer treats pain as an emergency. Stability does not mean absence of discomfort. It means presence within it. From this presence, wise action becomes possible. Avoidance removes this possibility by replacing awareness with impulse. Pain is not the enemy because it does not seek to harm. It seeks to inform. Avoidance, however, seeks comfort without understanding. It trades short-term relief for long-term cost. Recognizing this difference changes how discomfort is approached, not as something to defeat, but as something to meet, learn from, and move through with awareness, patience, and courage. Motivation is often celebrated as the driving force behind success, discipline, and change. It feels powerful when it appears, filling the mind with energy and clarity. But motivation is unreliable by nature. It rises and falls with mood, circumstances, rest, and emotion. Building a life or practice on motivation alone is like depending on the weather to decide whether you will move forward. Consistency, not motivation, is what creates real progress. Consistency does not depend on how you feel. It depends on commitment. This distinction is critical. Feelings change daily, sometimes hourly. Commitment remains steady because it is based on choice rather than emotion. When action is tied to feeling motivated, progress becomes unpredictable. When action is tied to consistency, progress becomes inevitable, even if slow. Motivation often appears at the beginning of a journey. New goals, fresh starts, and clear visions create excitement. This excitement makes effort feel light. But as novelty fades, resistance emerges. Discomfort, boredom, and doubt replace enthusiasm. This is the point where many stop. They interpret the absence of motivation as a sign that something is wrong. In reality, this is the moment when consistency becomes meaningful. Consistency teaches the mind how to act without negotiation. When an action is repeated regularly, the mind stops debating whether to do it. Decision fatigue decreases. The energy once spent on convincing yourself is redirected toward execution. Over time, consistency reduces friction. What once required effort becomes routine. What once felt heavy becomes neutral. Motivation seeks comfort. It prefers ideal conditions. Consistency accepts reality. It works with what is available rather than waiting for what is perfect. This acceptance builds resilience. You learn to act even when conditions are imperfect, when time is limited, when energy is low. This ability is far more valuable than bursts of inspiration. The mind learns through patterns. Inconsistent effort confuses it. It cannot predict behavior, so habits do not form. Consistent effort creates clarity. The mind understands what is expected and adapts accordingly. Neural pathways strengthen. Skills improve. Confidence grows quietly, not from emotional highs, but from repeated follow-through. Consistency also protects against self-deception. Motivation can make you feel productive without actual progress. Planning, visualizing, and talking about goals can create a sense of movement, even when no action is taken. Consistency removes this illusion. It measures progress in actions completed. Small intentions fell. Consistent actions compound over time. Their impact is often invisible at first. This invisibility causes many to abandon them. Humans are drawn to immediate feedback. Consistency requires patience. It asks you to trust a process before results appear. This trust strengthens discipline and maturity. Motivation fluctuates, but consistency builds identity. When you show up regularly, you begin to see yourself differently. You are no longer someone who tries. You are someone who practices. This shift in identity reinforces behavior. Actions become aligned with self-image, reducing internal resistance. Consistency also changes how failure is perceived. Missed days or imperfect efforts are no longer reasons to quit. They become part of a larger pattern. One imperfect action does not disrupt consistency, quitting does. This perspective reduces all or nothing thinking. Progress becomes sustainable rather than fragile. Relying on motivation creates dependency. You wait for the right feeling before acting. This waiting reinforces passivity. Consistency reverses this relationship. Action comes first and feelings follow. Often, motivation appears to action has begun, not before. Consistency creates the conditions for motivation rather than waiting for it. Discipline is often misunderstood as harsh or rigid. In truth, discipline rooted in consistency is gentle but firm. It does not demand extremes. It asks for regular effort. This regularity reduces burnout. Intense motivation can push you too hard, too fast. Consistency keeps you balanced. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Each time you keep a small promise, you reinforce reliability. This trust strengthens confidence more than any external praise. You know you will act because you have evidence. This evidence becomes internal stability. Motivation focuses on outcomes. Consistency focuses on process. Outcomes are uncertain and often delayed. Process is immediate and controllable. By committing to process, anxiety decreases. You no longer obsess over results. You focus on what you can do today. Over time, consistency creates momentum. Momentum reduces effort. Actions flow more naturally. Resistance decreases. This momentum is fragile if driven by motivation, but durable when built on consistency. Consistency does not eliminate discomfort. It teaches you to coexist with it. You stop waiting for discomfort to disappear and learn to move despite it. This skill extends beyond any single goal. It becomes a way of living. The quiet power of consistency lies in its subtlety. There are no dramatic highs, no instant transformations. There is only steady accumulation. This accumulation reshapes ability, character, and perspective. While motivation excites the mind, consistency trains it, and training is what lasts. The desire to control the world, influence outcomes, and shape external circumstances is natural. People seek stability, recognition, and certainty through control. Yet the external world is complex, unpredictable, and constantly changing. Attempting to master it without first mastering oneself leads to frustration. True strength begins inward. Mastering yourself is the foundation upon which all meaningful influence is built. Self-mastery starts with awareness. Without awareness, reactions run automatically. Thoughts arise, emotions surge, and actions follow without conscious choice. Awareness creates space. It allows you to notice impulses before acting on them. This space is small, but it is powerful. Within it lies the ability to choose restraint over impulse, clarity over confusion, and purpose over habit. Many believe they know themselves, but familiarity is not mastery. To master yourself requires honest observation, especially of discomfort. It means noticing what triggers anger, avoidance, or distraction. These triggers reveal where control is lacking. Ignoring them allows them to dictate behavior from the shadows. Observing them brings them into light, where they can be worked with rather than feared. Self-mastery also involves regulation. Emotions are not enemies, but unregulated emotions become obstacles. When emotions control actions, behavior becomes inconsistent. One day productive, the next day stagnant. Regulation does not mean suppression. It means allowing emotions to arise without letting them determine behavior. This skill creates stability. A stable person can be trusted, relied upon, and followed. The breath is often the first place mastery is practiced. Breath reflects the state of the mind. When the mind is scattered, breathing becomes shallow. When the mind is calm, breathing deepens. Learning to regulate breath teaches the nervous system that calm is accessible. This physical anchor supports mental control in moments of stress. Mastering yourself also requires discipline. Discipline is the bridge between intention and action. Without it, goals remain ideas. Discipline is built through repetition, not force. Small, consistent actions train the mind to follow through. Each act of discipline strengthens self-trust. Without self-trust, confidence collapses. Many attempt to lead others, manage responsibilities, or pursue success while neglecting inner order. This imbalance creates tension. Outer achievements may accumulate, but inner instability undermines them. Stress increases. Satisfaction decreases. Self-mastery aligns inner state with outer action, creating coherence. Desire is another area of mastery. Desire itself is neutral, but uncontrolled desire leads to impulsive decisions. Chasing pleasure or avoiding discomfort without awareness creates cycles of regret. Mastery involves understanding desire, not eliminating it. By observing desire without immediately acting, choice becomes possible. Time management often fails without self-mastery. Procrastination is rarely about time. It is about emotion, avoidance of discomfort, fear of failure, or resistance to effort drive delay. Mastering yourself means facing these emotions directly. When inner resistance is addressed, action becomes simpler. Self-mastery also sharpens focus. Attention is one of the most valuable resources. Scattered attention weakens effectiveness. Training attention through presence, repetition, and intentional effort strengthens the mind. Focus allows depth. Depth creates quality. Quality earns respect. The ego often resists self-mastery because it threatens identity. Letting go of certain habits or beliefs feels like losing part of oneself. In reality, mastery refines identity rather than erasing it. It removes what is reactive and strengthens what is intentional. Failure plays a critical role in mastery. Each failure reveals where understanding or discipline is incomplete. Avoiding failure delays learning. Meeting failure with responsibility accelerates growth. Self-mastery turns setbacks into information rather than judgment. Physical discipline supports mental mastery. The body and mind are connected. Training the body through movement, posture, and endurance builds tolerance for discomfort. This tolerance transfers to mental challenges. A disciplined body supports a resilient mind. Mastering yourself also improves relationships. When you are not controlled by emotional reactions, communication becomes clearer. You listen without defensiveness. You respond rather than react. This presence builds trust. Influence grows naturally without force. The pursuit of self-mastery is ongoing. There is no final state of completion. Each stage reveals new layers. This ongoing nature is not a flaw. It is the practice. Mastery is not about perfection. It is about continuous refinement. As inner control strengthens, the need to control others diminishes. You become less reactive to external chaos. You adapt rather than resist. This adaptability is true power. It does not announce itself. It is felt through calm, consistency, and clarity. The world responds differently to those who have mastered themselves. Their words carry weight because they are aligned with action. Their presence feels stable because it is grounded internally. Their influence is subtle but lasting. Before attempting to change circumstances, shape outcomes, or lead others, mastery of the inner world must come first. Without it, effort scatters. With it, effort concentrates. Direction sharpens. Energy aligns. Action becomes purposeful. Mastering yourself is not separate from life. It is how life becomes deliberate rather than accidental.